Well, actually, I saw you yesterday, right?
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
but now we're about to open up a new slot here on Friday. If you might be interested in that one, okay?
Okay,
On Friday. So here, yesterday we were doing part of the most important lesson, which was modifiers, right? That was
okay.
part of the most difficult lesson. Do you have time to review it
Yes, actually, I was. I think we left him because
and
of
do two?
Undo to yes. I was
Right. So
looking at
did
my
you
notes.
review everything up to that point? Is there any questions you want to ask?
I'm not sure if everything at detail, but yeah, I was reading my
Most of
notes.
it. That's fine. That's what we want. Okay, to have a good overview of the whole theory, to be able to kind of get the most important parts of the rules. Right
Mhm.
now, let's go here to because and do to give me a second to share my screen. Here we go. Okay, I'm sharing my screen now, and we go with because and do to. We did that. And then the absolute phrase. Okay, the absolute phrase is the most difficult type of modifier. Okay, what is the absolute phrase? The absolute phrase is an adverb. It's an adverb, so it modifies usually a verb. Usually a verb. Okay, and the absolute phrase sounds. I mean, the peculiarity about the absolute phrase is that it sounds very weird. Usually, it sounds wrong. That's why most people can't really choose it, right? Can't really pick it. So, what makes up an absolute phrase? What are the things that constitute an absolute phrase? Two things: a noun and a noun modifier. If I say, for example, let's take a noun like house. My house built, noun modifier. That could be an absolute phrase. Okay. Then what we would need to check would be if that makes sense with the actual verb. Okay. So the absolute phrase has this structure. A noun, usually the noun is going to start also with a possessive. Not always, though. That's not a requirement, but it's something that often happens. All right. Possessive, then the noun, and then built here an adjective. That adjective normally is going to be either a normal adjective, like a common adjective, like a number or a ready, right? Anything that describes common adjectives, we call them things like ready, right? Ready, pretty, cool. Those are common adjectives because those are just words that are only adjectives. They're nothing else. And then, but it could also be a past participle, like built, right? Built is a past participle. So that's the structure of this absolute phrase. And then you could put it either after or before the main clause. Example: my house built, comma, I moved to Lima. Something like that. Yes, sir. Now, what is this doing? I mean, if you have an absolute phrase, it's going to modify the verb in the main clause. What information is it supposed to give you? Two types of information: either a explanation of how that happens or a context. Context means something that happened before the action. So my house build happened before I moved to Lima. Okay, so that's kind of the structure. But in this case, that's fine, right? Because once my house was built, I moved to Lima.
Okay,
You could also put it at the end. I moved to Lima, my house built, comma, right? Always with a comma. Now, let's check another example. Okay, let's have another example, something like this. Let's see all the families in New York, little New York's Little Italy, dead after Michael sent his hitman in an impossible mission. The Godfather became the new king.
wow. Hmm.
Okay, so what do we have now? Okay, all the families in New York's Little Italy, dead after Michael sent his hitman in impossible mission, the Godfather became the new king. So that sounds weird, okay? But is it okay or not? That's the question.
Well, the main class is the Godfather became the new king.
Yes, that's the main class. Perfect. What is the other thing? Is it a noun plus noun modifier? Yes. All the families in New York, Italy, families. Noun. Okay. Dead. Adjective. Now, what are the other words? Because the other words are a little fluff, right? The other words would be just modifiers. But all is a modifier for families. In New York, Italy, a modifier for families. Dead is the main modifier for families. After is a modifier for dead. So all of them are modifiers. And that's fine. That's not a problem. Okay.
Okay, but
So this whole thing is an absolute phrase.
an,
Is it okay? Then we have to check if it's giving me a context
an,
or a explanation.
is a noun modifier though, or is a noun plus a modifier?
It's a noun families plus a noun modifier.
Okay, because
The noun modifier in this case would be dead.
a noun modifier is an adjective, right?
Yes. Noun modifier is an adjective. Dead is an adjective for families.
Okay,
All
the,
right.
and
Nice.
he's not applying the touch rule.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing dead is modifying family. It's applying the touch rule. Why? Because families, it's a noun phrase. So this whole thing is a noun. You see? That whole thing
Okay,
is a noun. So that is modifying families in New York, literally. Yeah. It's only one noun. Of course, if we added here a that or a which, that would look like it's modifying more Little Italy, you see, than families. But this dead, because it is a past participle, looks like it's modifying the whole noun. Families in New York's Little Italy.
okay.
Okay. So this one is kind of weird, this type of modifier. It's by far the hardest to identify. Now, one good thing you can do if you believe that something is a noun modifier, what you do is this. In the middle between the absolute phrase and the clause, if you believe this is an absolute phrase, what you're going to do is you're going to remove the comma and just add a with. Usually, if that's really an absolute phrase, that's going to make it look and sound better. So I would say my house, or I'm sorry, before the comma, no, before the absolute phrase. So this is the absolute phrase, and the comma, the with would go before the absolute phrase. With my house built, I moved to Lima. That sounds a little bit more relatable. Okay. Now, if I have the absolute phrase here, my house built, I would put the with here before the absolute phrase. I moved to Lima with my house built. That's one function of with to join the absolute phrase to the clause,
Okay.
right? Very good. So let's do this one here.
Mm. So, okay. Our speaking is a subject. and work
Yep.
by.
Horace Pippin. Very good.
So the main clause is that RSVP and work by holding the brush in his right hand.
Very good.
Mm, the noun could be. I'm trying to. I was trying to find the past participle verb. So the past participle.
I mean, the adjective, the noun modifier, doesn't always have to be in the form of a past participle.
Okay.
Okay. But most of the time, it will be either a past participle or a common adjective. So if I say, instead of my house bill, I could say my bike ready. What is the word ready? An adjective, right? It's nothing else. It's adjective. So it could be a plain adjective or a past participle. Most of the time, it could be any other adjective, but that's very uncommon. Normally, it's going to be a past participle or a common adjective.
Yeah. Um. Can you repeat just one more time? How can I use with to identify?
Yes, if you believe that you are in front of a, let's say, my car ready, comma, I went to the party. Okay, party.
Just I
Let's
went
say,
to the party with my car ready.
yeah, but normally you use with before the
Um,
absolute phrase. With my car ready, I went to the party.
oh,
That makes it sound better. If you had, you could also put it here at the end. If that makes it sound better. Okay. So, but the important thing is this: this gotta be giving you either a context or an explanation.
context or
One of those two. If it doesn't give you context or an explanation, it's not okay
it's not
because
an
those are
absolute
those
phrase.
those are the functions. Yeah, right. Those are the functions of the absolute phrase.
Okay. Right. So well, I think right now I am very sure I was going to say letter E, but I think could be letter E.
I think letter E is an absolute phrase. Yes. Now, why are the other ones wrong though?
Mm, okay, having the right hand. But I used that method. So with the right hand and are being creeped by a sniper bullet during the First World War, or speaking a black American. Could be letter D with the right hand and are being creeped, but that being sounds very ugly.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right. That being makes it sound ugly. So between B, D, and E, E is better because E has fewer words. Now, what about his? Some of them don't have his. They'll say the right hand arm. For
yes,
example, the first one also.
ing having
Then
the right. Having the right hand is adjective.
that's an adjective. That's only an adjective. Yes.
Okay, there is no
Modifying or speaking.
because I think there is one who is called the dangling modifier would be the first one.
But that's modifying or speaking here. Is it wrong? He didn't have his right hand arm crippled. He did, right?
Ah yes,
So that's fine. The problem here with letter A is this: being is ugly, but also you have the right hand arm. That is wrong. You need to have his. Why?
having the right hand and his left, having the right, having his. Okay, so we know that is modifying Horace Pippin. Oh, they're talking
So we know
about.
that it is modifying Horace Pippin.
Oh, we're talking about Horace Pippin, the subject.
Yeah, because otherwise, if we don't have his right hand arm, we don't know if those hands or those arms are belong to Horace Pippin. They could
Yes.
belong to somebody else. He killed, for example, the person. Let's say Horace Pippin is a psycho. He kills people. He grabs a hand and arm. You see, so it's not just any hand and arm. It's his hand, his arm. So letter A is out, and letter D is out because of that. So you are left with these ones. Here, you wouldn't have a contrast or explanations because and despite. Those are changing the meaning way too much.
Hmm.
Okay. Nice. So usually, if they give you the option with the absolute phrase, it is because they want you to pick it. Okay, they
Okay.
want you to pick the absolute phrase. So far, nice. Let's go here to countable and uncountable modifier. This one is more simple. Do we know the difference between a countable and an uncountable noun?
Yes. Well, one
Okay.
is
A
the.
countable you can count up and usually has a plural form, right?
Mhm.
So whatever is in plural is countable. Now the uncountable one cannot be counted and usually doesn't have a plural form. Okay. Now here we have some of the key. These are keywords. What are these keywords? These are some adjectives that will modify certain types of nouns, right? So the first four are only modify countable nouns, and the other four modify are equivalent, but they only modify uncountable nouns. Okay, so many is for countable because in many pens, but you cannot say much pens. You have to say much many pens, right? If you want to say water, you're gonna say many water. You have to say much water, and so right. So pens goes here, water goes in here, and whenever you want to modify a countable noun, you use any of these four. If you want to use those four, right? And whenever you want to modify an uncountable noun, and you need to say any content like this, then you go with these modifiers. Of course, any other modifiers, for example, if you say cool, right? Normally all the other modifiers modify any of them without a problem. So modifiers normally modify countable and uncountable. These are the four that we care about. Those are the ones that make a distinction. Okay. So whenever you are reading the sentence, the question, these are keywords. So if you see many, few, fewer, number, much, little, lesser amount, then you start applying the theory. You have to check if whatever they are modifying is countable or uncountable.
Okay.
Okay, so that's it's very easy. Let's go here, number 19.
Mm, Could be letter B.
Letter B. Let's see. What you have the word match, right? What is it modifying?
Uh, Dioxins.
Dioxins is countable or uncountable. How does it sound to you?
For me, sounds like an uncountable.
Why? It finishes in S though.
Yes, because oh well,
Finishes in S, right? Or no?
yes.
Isn't that indicating that it's a plural?
I trying to count like one dioxins, two dioxins, three dioxins.
Most likely it can be counted, right? If you can say one
Let's
dioxine, that then you have plural dioxins, then that's accountable now. Now
all
let's
right.
we can do this by analogy. Let's find the word, for example, something that sounds and looks like dioxin. Toxin. Can you say one toxin? Yes. Two
Mhm.
toxins? Yes. So that's a plural. Therefore,
Yes.
it is countable or uncountable.
No, it's a countable.
So we eliminate this. Okay.
Okay. So could be many of the dioxins that are currently controlled. Letter D. I don't
Okay.
know
What's wrong with the last one then?
to which it sounds weird, but
Okay, but
also
you're not applying theory there.
many of the dioxins that are currently controlled in North America. Okay, well, so no, maybe well, the less that change the meaning is letter E, so it could be letter E, because letter D they said many of the dioxins are currently uncontrolled, and they add that and North Americans are exposed to come from this range of ways. I think it's because uh,
Here you have to
changes
check
meaning.
parallelism, and you
Yes.
have to check here concision. All right. And you have to check the original one also. There are several things you need to check in there.
Yes. So yeah, it's letter E is more. It's,
What's wrong with D?
oh, so there is a parallelism, yes, but it's North Americans with it's a noun, There is no parallelism. None of the dioxins
Let's check the parallelism. So what do you have? You have and. What do you have to the right?
no,
Nope.
no, North Americans. Oh well, a class. North Americans
Close.
class.
Very good. Close.
Yes,
Not a noun. If you have a noun plus a subject, but plus a verb, that's already a clause.
yes.
Do you have a main clause on the left?
No,
Be careful.
but many of the dioxins that are currently uncontrollable. Well,
Okay, that's not a main clause. But don't you have a main clause on the left?
many of the dioxins I report. Could be the first part that's not underlined. I report,
Of course, report has included.
report.
So it's important for us to notice that.
Yeah,
So grammatically, do you have another clause? Yes. Grammatically, it's fine. Now, what do we have to check?
logical, right?
Logical. Do you want to make those two parallel?
Report
So one thing
concluded.
is that the report has concluded, and another thing is the North Americans are exposed, or the North Americans are exposed is part of the conclusions of that report.
Mm, yeah, a report that has concluded. Yes, the report that has concluded. Mm, I don't know.
Let's try to analyze it. That's it. Don't give up.
So report. I think yes, the report can say something about if the North American people are exposed or no.
The original one has no parallelism, right? The original one has no parallelism. Now,
Yes.
what are they doing with North Americans are exposed? To which, so they are using these North Americans to say that dioxins to which these people are exposed counts. Okay. Does it have the same meaning here? No, because these North Americans are exposed in reality. We want to say that's the origin of the dioxins. So it's got to have some sort, as you said before, right? Logic with dioxins. Not with the report that has concluded. The report has concluded one thing, and inside that whole thing is that the dioxins to which these North Americans are exposed are blah 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 blah, that kind of thing. It's not between the report has concluded and North Americans are exposed. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense, right? On one side, the report concludes. On the other side, North Americans are exposed. No, North Americans are exposed to what?
To the
That wouldn't make sense. It needs to have relationship with the dioxins, and it doesn't have it. So that's out. Okay. Very good. So if we don't want to do this whole parallelism, what we can apply here is the meaning, right?
yes.
Letter E is far more similar to A, and also it's way more concise than D. Basically, letter E is the same thing as say just changing the number or the of the modifier, right? Modifier countable versus uncountable. Basically,
Yes.
they're the same thing. Good.
But
Yes.
there, I have a question. There is a rule. I don't remember. There's a rule in order to use to which.
No, no. The only thing we know when you say to which, normally to which, at which, any preposition with which, right? Preposition with which, you are using which as a subordinator. So
Mm,
usually what follows should be a clause. That's the only thing we need to verify.
okay.
Okay. Very good. So what about this one, number 20?
Mm, mm. So could be letter C.
Letter C.
Yes.
Okay, few services and a little water. Okay, why?
Because one is uncountable now, and the other one is uncountable now.
Okay, good. So what's wrong with A and B?
And the first one, um, they're trying, or it looks like Little is modifying both. Um, just one of those are uncountable with water.
Right. Okay, that's good. Little, you need few services or fewer services, right?
Yes.
Few in this case. Nice. Okay, what's wrong with the other ones?
Well, if I will be in the exam, I will say, okay, this is less worthy.
Okay, but we need to check something else though.
Okay, there's a little water services. There is so
They're giving you a split there, and that split is what it's going to help you decide
there
among
are
the three actually,
there are okay.
plural and
So
singular, right?
yes,
So
plural and
that's the thing.
singular.
That's very important. Verbs, plural and singular. There's a number of verbs.
Hmm. Little available water. Available is also an adjective.
Available, yes, available is an adjective.
There is little water or services available. So in this case, they're changing the conjunction. Um,
Okay, doesn't matter too much. What we want to do is this R and S. Yeah, I mean,
okay,
it could have an impact in there, right? It's not
different
a big
meaning.
one though. Different meaning. Okay, that's
Yes.
good. Different meaning. Okay, that's another thing, but that's fine. Meaning.
Mhm.
Yes.
There is little water, and there are few services. So if I said there is it have something to do with the countable and uncountable, can I mix that? There is little water. So there is
You
singular.
can mix right without a problem as long as you give the right adjectives.
Okay, there
And the
is
thing here, let's go. Here what we have to check is number one between is and are. That's kind of the thing, right? Are is fine, yes, because we have two things. What is the subject of are? There.
services.
But there is one
Uh,
of those subjects that doesn't really mean anything. There actually will delegate its number to the object. So if I say, for example, there is a cat. That's fine. Why? Because is goes with cat. Cat is singular. The object is singular because that's what there does. Even though there is the subject, it delegates to the object. If I say there are cats, that's good also because are has to agree with the plural cats. Okay? But here are, what do you have as a subject? As the object, I'm sorry, services and water. Whenever you have an and, that's a plural, right? That okay?
yes.
So this one is fine. Now, what happens with letter D is water or services. That could be fine. I mean, there's a big problem there that is similar to the first and the second one, right? Services needs
Yes,
few.
it's plural, right?
That's out.
And
And it's also plural.
yes, it's also
So
plural,
that's a wrong.
and you have
You need few and it's also plural. Now, what about exists here? That's just a verb.
oh
What is the
yes,
subject?
it's a singular.
Which one?
Water
Nope.
and
You have a list.
few
What
services.
happens when you have an ant?
Uh,
You're joining two singulars.
few
So in
services.
this case, as a plural to singular, right? If you have two nouns that have been joined with ant, what happens? They become a what? A plural.
A plural. Yes.
Always plural, right? So exists is a singular. So that's wrong. E is the answer. Even though it's more wordy, yes, it's more wordy, but
There are
literacy
few,
had a big problem with the number of the verb.
okay, there are few services and little available water. Okay.
Nice. That was good. Let's go to number 21 now. Let's see. How do we do with that?
A lot. Mm, okay. Countable. Okay, so we're talking about tons, right?
Or talking about tons. That could be the case, yes.
So
Maybe production. Maybe production.
okay,
So when they say
but
25% less, it means that 25% less tons, or the production was less than before.
but production is singular, and those is not plural.
Okay, that works. So that's fine. The case of those is wrong. Yes, because production is singular. Nice.
Okay, less than than less than. So if we're talking about production, production is accountable now, or because we can say productions, one production, two production, or we can't. Mm,
Now, when you're saying less and fewer, in this case, you're not modifying production. What is less? The production? No,
not
less the percent.
less than.
There's an
Okay,
adjective for percent. Percent is always uncountable.
okay.
Always uncountable.
So fewer is out.
Fewer is out. Yes, exactly.
Mm,
So this one we
less.
do it because of comparisons. But just give it a shot. What do you think the answer should be?
I feel like letter C is empty, but
Very good. That's it. Because in letter C, we're going to see this in comparisons a little bit more in detail. You're comparing a percentage to a year, and it doesn't make too much sense. It has to be a percentage of the production to the harvest. The harvest is the another. It's not a production, but it's the yield, right? The result. So that's what you get. But you need to compare it to another noun. Production, percentage of production to something else, not to a year. And you said it correctly. It feels kind of empty because it is. Okay. Nice. Any question here, number 21?
no.
Is there anything that okay, perfect. Subgroup modifiers. This one is a little tricky. Okay, what is a subgroup
Oh,
modifier? It's a common way to modify a noun that implies a quantity. Uh, then you can use a subgroup modifier. Okay, there are three ways to set the subgroup modifier. Three ways to set it up. Okay, now what are those three ways to set it up? Here are the three ways. Let's use the first one here. The first one, they tell you you first need to have a quantity word. Then you need to have an of which or of whom or of what. I'm going to tell you here of which is by far the most common. Of whom when you are dealing with people. Of which normally when you're dealing with things that are countable. And of what when you're dealing with things that are uncountable. Okay? Then you need a verb and then the adjective. Okay. So can you read this example for me, please?
I bought 10 books, some of which were new.
Okay, here in this case, the quantity word was in the sum. What other quantity words do you have? All the sanam. Sanam for this is number one.
Yes,
Some, any,
pronouns.
none, more,
More,
most, all. Okay, those are the sanam. Then what else? Any words like few, like each. Okay, like every. Those are also quantity words. Any number is a quantity word. So you can say, for example, instead of some of which, two of which you can say. Right? Percents also 25% of which, or you can have fractions also. One third of which. Okay, so those are the quantity words: sanam, few, each, every, numbers, percents, and fractions. After you have chosen a quantity word that makes sense, then you go with of which, of whom, or of what. In this case, we're using of which is the most common because we are modifying a countable noun. That is not a person because people get whom, and it's countable. If it were uncountable, maybe we were using what. Now, that's a little bit trickier because sometimes with uncountables, you can also make which work. Okay? But we're going to talk about it later. For the time being, Whenever you see a countable noun, use which. And after that, you need a verb. That's what makes it different from other ones. That's what allows you also to add more information. So if you use the first one, it's because this verb will give you more info. Okay, will give you more info. That's a thing. And then the adjective, new. Okay, that's the first format, the first way to set our subgroup modifier. It's kind of lengthy, but it's good. It's very common on the Gman. Number two. Number two says you have the quantity word, let's say some. In this case, you don't have of which, of whom, or what. You have of them only. Of them. Now, if you use of them, that means that with this one, you can only modify countable nouns, right? Because if you were modifying an uncountable, it wouldn't make sense for you to say of them. Okay, so this number two, even though it's shorter than the first one, but it has less functions because it cannot be used to modify uncountable nouns. Okay, in this case, it will work because books is countable, so them would be fine. Some of them. Now, if you use of them, you don't have to use a verb. That would be wrong. Sometimes you're going to place a verb here. That's wrong. You just need to have the adjective new, and that's it. Some of them new, nothing else. We need nothing else.
So, the first one is the quantity word plus which plus an adjective. No. So there's
The
also
first one, what really makes a difference with the first one is the verb. The other ones don't have a verb.
okay.
All right, that's the main thing. Sometimes the wrong answer will give you a verb on the second one. So some of them were new, for example. That's incorrect.
Okay.
That's
Every time I see a them, I know there's no way
There
to
should be
be.
no verb. And
Uh,
if you see of which, you need to have a verb right after.
okay.
And then the last one, which is the most common, I think, the last one in literature, and the GMAT is very uncommon. Okay, this one. You just have a quantity word and adjective. So some new. That's it. The GMAT will use this one very little, even though it's maybe the most common, colloquially and also formal writing and everything. The GMAT doesn't use it. Yeah, but that's another option. Yes,
Mhm.
quantity word and adjective. But basically, the first two are the ones that they're gonna use. The ones
But
that they like.
where
Yes,
where new is a clause?
it's a subordinate clause.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right. Some of which were new, of which is subordinating that. That's why you are allowed to have that verb in there.
Okay.
If you place a verb in some of them, there is no subordinator, so that's a main clause.
Hmm.
And we will be wrong.
Okay.
Nice. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go on to number 22.
Then adjective. So could be letter C.
Letter C. Let's see. Why are the other ones wrong?
So each of them, there could be a verb.
Very good. So that has is wrong because it's like a um, different format, right? The verb goes in the first format, not in the second. Very good.
Mm-hmm. Well, then I don't know. Is them that uh have there's acting like a verb, so could be in
The
the
have, the
yes.
have. No, it's not a verb because you have that have. That's what that plus verb. How do we call that? Which plus verb?
Oh yeah, that's
Relative,
relative.
which is an adjective. So that's just an adjective. Kind of weird that adjective, but that could be for letter B. Very strange that there isn't a relative as the adjective in that
Okay,
case.
that have finger
But it's
preposition.
not totally wrong. Could be, could work.
So then they have
Then they have which.
which
Okay,
of the
that's
taste
fine.
bud, which they
It's
call
good.
the taste bud. Um, So I don't know if it's like logical here, but they call who is they? Taste buds, or I don't know if this is referring to something.
Who's they? Well, where's they at?
And letter B, which they call that taste for.
Okay, very good. They is wrong. Yes, because they call who called them the scientists. Maybe they don't have that word here,
Yeah.
so that one's wrong. Okay. Now another thing that is wrong is this have, but not because it is a verb, but because of the number.
Yes, because we're talking each is singular. That's
Each,
yes.
right?
That's
That's
the reason also that letter E is wrong.
nice.
Um,
Yes, you're right.
yeah, and letter D is wrong because there's no verb. I
There is no
think.
verb, so you have C. Nice. There we go. Cowabunga. Yes. Or 22 goes that way. Okay, C. That was very good. Do you have any questions here?
No.
Perfect. So now we're finishing almost this lesson, right? Exceptions to the touch rule. What are the exceptions? The touch rule we know applies to adjectives or adverbs, or both.
Mm, the Those for adjective adverbs. I think it's for adjective and adverbs.
Adjectives only.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The touch rule is for adjectives. Now,
Just
what
a
does the
noun.
touch rule tell you? It whenever you want to describe a noun, whenever you want to modify a noun, you gotta have the modifier next to it, right? Touch it.
Yes. Yes.
Touch it. Here they tell you. The first exception, which the modifier is not going to touch a noun, it wants to modify, but still is okay, is whenever the modifier is too long and the predicate is too short. Okay, can you read this one for me, please?
Okay. A new CEO has been hired who will lead the change of the company into the digital era by reinforcing its investments in high tech and creating a specialized department like unit to oversee the implementation of a new integrated multitasking software that itself feeds on social media.
So there we have yes, magnanimous modifier, right? It's huge, all right? So you have who, blah, 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 until the end. That's only one modifier. That's trying to modify what? What is now they're trying to modify with?
A new CEO has been hired who
What is
the
who trying to modify?
the CEO.
CEO, right? But it's not touching, so it would be incorrect. But in this case, it's fine because we're doing an exception. What is the exception? Has been hired is a predicate. What is a predicate? The predicate is the verb plus the object. If I say, I want to buy a book, what is the predicate? Want to buy a book. Anything that is not the subject, basically. Okay? So that's a predicate. Now they tell me if the predicate is short and the modifier is too long, then what you're going to do is you're going to put the predicate in the middle. In that way, you kind of save it. You bring it back. Okay, you retract it. Now, why? Because otherwise, if we just respect the touch, we will have a new CEO who blah 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 has been hired. So by the time we reach has been hired, we would have lost consciousness about the CEO. You see? So we would have
Okay.
lost really the grasp on CEO because we wouldn't know what it means because we would have forgotten by that time. So what we do is here we place a predicate in the middle whenever the modifier is long. What is a long modifier? Usually 6 words or more. This is an exaggeration, a blatant exaggeration. Now, what about the word here? Too short. What is a predicate that is too short? Around 3 words or less. Okay, so 3 words or less is a short predicate. 6 words or more is a long modifier, right? Then the second exception, which in reality isn't really an exception, it's just more like a clarification. Whenever the meaning of a modifier makes it clear that the main noun of a noun phrase is the one to be modified. What is noun phrase? By this time, we know that
An
noun phrase
adjective.
is when you have a noun
Like it.
plus a preposition and nouns,
Yes.
right? For example, the house of the dog. The dog. So, of the dog is an adjective for house. So, when you have a noun plus a prepositional phrase, that's a noun phrase. Let's see. Can you read this one for me, please?
Sure. The new CEO had a way of motivating employees that made the board really happy.
Nice. So, in this case, you have a modifier that made the board really happy. What is that modifying? What do you think that's modifying?
The way of motivating
The way
employees.
of motivating employees, right? Now, if somebody comes along, let's draw this person here, right? Like that. This person says, you know what? I think that they are modifying employees.
Mm, that is modifying employees.
That's what he says. I'm not saying that. He's saying that.
The new CEO. It doesn't sound like that
Why not?
because
Could it be? Because if it can be, then this whole thing would turn into ambiguous.
because the
You see?
employees doesn't make the board really happy
All right, but could it be? It could. Why could employees make the board happy?
because they're
What do you have against those employees?
because
Maybe they're good employees.
they're doing nothing.
How do you know they're doing nothing?
No, in just employees, just the now employees.
But employees, they could be great employees. So that would be ambiguous. The
Okay,
actual answer would be no. It's impossible. Why? Because employees are people. That is not for people. If they would have wanted to modify employees, they would have used who,
we
right?
okay who? Hmm,
Right, for people. So as we know that that cannot modify employees, the only thing it can modify is way, it makes sense. So this is pretty clear. No ambiguity here. They,
Okay,
they are totally trying to modify way, not employees. All right.
yes.
Good, because of the type of modifier they chose. Nice. So now we come over here, number 23.
Well, mm, here's I think we just saw it. Could be letter E
Letter E for you. Okay, why?
because only the relative who can modify a person, right?
All right, why do you believe that it is important to modify individual? What happens if we have another person, all right? Let's
Mm,
draw this person like that, all right? Maybe you know this person like that.
that's a strawberry.
No, that's a person.
Hmm,
There we go. It's Goku,
yes.
right? It says, you know what? This is modifying reactions. Why not? Why couldn't it be?
It's not like a noun modifier. The this
Why couldn't it be a non modifier? That is a non modifier. That plus create.
Transition line person emotional reactions in individual that yeah it's yeah you're talking about the individual.
What are the reactions? Why can the reactions create something? Especially because they're not creating something physical, they're creating responses. They're generating responses. Could it be? They can be. They can.
In
So
time.
letter A is, I think, clearly modifying reactions, right? Maybe we can say later that that doesn't make sense. Okay, but right now it's clearly modifying reactions because it's that create is in plural, and they're using a that. They're saying with this that they're saying I don't want to modify individual, and create is in plural, so it's clearly modifying reactions. What about B?
That creates reactions is in plural, so
That's it.
creates
So that's wrong, and that can modify individual. What about C?
creating um I'm not sure about creating.
Creating is an adjective. Okay, it's an
Yes.
adjective also. The problem would be here. You have adjective creating. Okay, what is it modifying? It could be individual, or it could also be reactions. Is there any way for you to know? No.
No.
So what is that?
Ambiguous.
Ambiguous.
Rod, I
Yes.
I think I have a problem to identify when is ing verb and when is adjective.
All right. Ing verb. Remember, the verb only can be when you have an ing, and here before you have a verb to
To
be.
be. Okay.
Is, are, will be,
Right.
the where, was. Okay. If
Okay.
you don't have any
You're
of
right.
them, it's never going to be a verb. Now, if you have a comma ing, usually that's going to be the adverb, the one we saw that gives you explanation of how, consequence, right? But if you have the ing without the comma, that's an adjective modifying a noun that it's touching.
Okay.
In this case, we have the creating without a comma here, no comma here. So that's why it's more like an adjective. Now, what happens with to create?
To create, that's an infinitive.
As infinitive, yes.
To create.
Infinitives are good for purposes. What is a modifying? It's a modifier also. It's an adjective. But if it's an adjective, the same thing as what happened to creating, right? You have in there to create, okay? To create. It could modify individual, it can modify reactions because these types of adjectives they modify people and things, so it's ambiguous. And besides, even if it were not ambiguous, the problem is that it's changing the meaning, right? Because it's giving you purpose. The original one didn't tell you that it was its purpose. You see?
Okay. Yes.
So now, and what happens with the last one? The last one is fine, modifying individual. So here, the first one, clearly modifying reactions. The last one, clearly modifying individual. Now, if it's impossible for us to have reactions to as they are creating psychological responses, then we go with the last one. But in this case, it's not impossible. If we choose E, we'll be changing the meaning. So we go with A.
Mm. We're
Okay,
consistent.
because it makes sense. The reactions can create responses.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So that has been the lesson for modifiers. It's the biggest lesson, the most important by far. Review it a lot. Now you have homework, everything that is related to number 4, right? 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. And now we're going to go to verbs, right? So now we are over halfway advanced in the sense correction course. Now, here with tenses, verbs and tenses, we're going to see 4 things. First, the tenses, which is the most important thing. Number 2, the mood. The mood is a very tricky subject. Tricky and difficult because there are going to be a lot of lists for you to memorize. Okay. And they don't come that much. So sometimes people feel that they learn a lot of things, a lot of lists for very few questions. Okay. Sometimes I feel that way. Now, active and passive is just something very basic. Helping verbs, which is important because we're going to be using tons of helping verbs in the following lesson, which is comparisons. Okay. So let's start with tenses. We're going to see three tenses. We're going to see the simple tense, simple, right? Past, present, future. Then we're going to see the continuous tense, continuous, which is the ing when they use it as a verb, right? We already mentioned that in order for the ing to be a verb, what do you need?
Verb to be.
Verb to be in front. Okay. And we're also going to see the perfect tenses, perfect, which involves having has or have or had, right? Plus a participle, a past participle, had gone, has seen, have studied, something like that. Well, we have to know. I think you kind of know this already. You kind of, I've seen you kind of analyze this. These two tenses here are special tenses. So you only choose them if you are required, if you are forced to choose them. If there's something that is forcing you to use that tense. Otherwise, we don't use it. So, for example, if I say, let's say Joe is walking home, period. Okay. Is there anything that is like ordering me, forcing me to choose this tense? No. Why couldn't it be Joe walks home? Right? So we only use these tenses, the special tenses, is to here when there's something that requires us to use it. Okay, if
Okay.
nothing, there's nothing that would require us to use it, then we go with the simple. The simple is kind of that default tense. That's a natural tense. So we leave things in natural, in their natural state. Okay, that's important. That's important. If you are ever in a rush, you're running out of time, then you have to apply this. Okay.
Okay.
So, what are the simple tenses? It tell you the Gmail prefers simplicity. If the simple tenses make sense, you need to keep them. You need to keep them if they make sense, right? Unless they force you to change them to a different tense. Now, the simple present is this one. Young studies for the GMAT studies here. Now, when they talk about the simple present, they are not saying that the action is happening right now. They're saying that it is an action that happens frequently, that happens most of the time, that often happens, that happens habitually, as they say here. So use them for general definitions. Whatever is a general definition, like a dictionary definition of a thing, then that's going to have this simple present tense. Okay, I'm gonna say the computer is being a nice tool that helps creators. No, the computer is a blah 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 blah. Right? I'm defining the computer. So when I give a definition, that's in the simple present. Okay, this tense, the simple present, is the default tense. It's the most natural tense you can have. Okay, in order to change it to another tense, another ing or perfect, you would need to have a word that would force you to change it. And in order to change it from the present to the past or the future, you will need an indication of time, what we know as time reference. Okay, we're going to see that in a second here. Can you read this one for me, please?
Okay. John studied for the GMAT last night.
So studied one particular point in the past, right? Now, for this one, this is a simple past. We need a time reference, which means if I have John studied for the GMAT, period, that's weird. Very weird. Because if we say we use the past, normally we are required to state when, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense. So, when did he study? I studied for the GMAT last night, you see? Something like that. So, last night here is my keyword, my time reference. Okay. We need that for the past. Otherwise, we wouldn't know why it needs to be in the past. Okay. Same thing with the future. John will study for the GMAT tonight. Tonight is in the future. That's my time, my reference, and will study will be one particular point in time in the future. See, what do you think about that?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, okay. All right. Now let's see this one. Number one.
Okay.